Good morning, and welcome to Unity of Kent Sunday service for May 24th, 2020. I'm Reverend Patty Becker. I'm the spiritual leader of Unity of Kent, and our worship assistant this morning is Lee O'Neill, and we are joined today by musician Adam Cohen. And Adam Cohen will now start our service with the song, God Is, I Am.
It didn't do anything to you.
God is all there is, and I am one with God. God is all there is, and I am one with God. My heart is open to the full expression of this life living me. God is all there is, and I am one with God. God is all there is, and I am one with God.
Hi. Good morning again. I'm so glad that you've chosen to be with us this morning. It's a beautiful day again today. The tide is going out. The water is very smooth, and I am in my happy place. Unity of Kent is an open and welcoming congregation. We invite people of all ages, colors, creeds, lifestyles to join us on our path of spiritual discovery. We promote a philosophy of practical Christianity that is based on the teachings of Jesus and the core principles of New Thought. So we believe in each person's spiritual authority, and we know that by applying the spiritual principles to our lives, that we experience change. We experience an expanded sense of who we are and the goodness within our lives. And that goodness, that vibration of expansion that we experience and cultivate within us, then extends from us and envelops our whole world, beginning with our family, our relationships, our community, and then expanding even further to include everyone and everything. And so this morning, I would like to open our service with prayer, just to set a tone and a stage for our coming together. So I invite you to, if it feels comfortable for you, to close your eyes and to just direct your attention to your inner being, the inner being of space and timelessness, the realm of all possibility and eternity. And as a tone for not only this time of prayer, but also for our entire service, I would invite you to just take a few breaths to relax your body, calm your mind, and to bring your focus to this time and this experience that we're sharing together. You're not here by accident, but keeping a divine appointment. That there's something in today's service that is meant especially for you, that will be a point, a beginning of transformation, that there's a gift here this morning for everyone, whether it be through a message or meditation, reflection, or something in the music, that I affirm that you will be uplifted and engaged in a new idea that will change your life. One presence, one power, active in this moment, within our community, within our lives, within every situation and circumstance we find ourselves. We call this presence and power God, and God is all there is. God is the very core and essence of our being, and we yield to this presence, allowing it to work as us, through us. And so may the radiance of this presence and power flow throughout our bodies, enliven our minds, and bring us to the edge of who we are, inviting us to step across the threshold into who we may become. And so we affirm our becoming in this moment. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
Weave us together, weave us together, unity and love. Weave us together, weave us together, together in love. Weave us together.
I'll try and get in again.
Weave us together in unity and love.
Sorry.
Weave us together, weave us together, together in love.
So now I invite Lee O'Neill to share with us some announcements and a statement of faith.
До свидания. I'm learning a little Russian while being quarantined in here because you never know what might happen. Good morning. Thank you for joining us again live on Facebook. Happy Memorial Weekend to everybody. Hope you have a safe and happy weekend. And I'd like to say thank you to all the service people. Thank you for your service. Today, our virtue, let's start with the statement of faith. And it's on the screen, so if you'd say it with me. There is one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God, the good, omnipotence. I trust and align with that power of goodness now. So today our virtue is expert, which is something that the man in the White House doesn't like, but the experts are telling us to stay safe, stay home, and just be careful with social distancing and all, and we'll all get through this together. So I'd like to read the virtue for today. An expert is someone who is highly skilled in something. An expert is knowledgeable and experienced. Experts are confident in their abilities and are called upon for information and guidance. To be an expert is to have a thorough base of comprehension and understanding. And the affirmations are, I am an expert. I am confident in my abilities. I am skilled and knowledgeable. I am accurate and experienced. So I don't know if you've heard, but the stores are opening up early now for seniors. So the other morning there was a senior lineup, and this young man came by and he tried to cut in front of the line. And the woman in the front of the line, she took her cane and she beat him and pushed him back into the parking lot. And the second time he walked up, the old man, he punched him in the stomach and pushed him back into the parking lot. And the third time he walked up, he said, if you don't let me unlock the doors, you're never going to get in. So again, our announcements are on Tuesdays, join Patty for a prayer circle at 11 a.m. on Facebook Zoom. And then on Wednesdays, join for the Spirit Talk, which is, it's just a conversation. There's all kinds of comments, questions that come up, and it's very informative. So join us for those two things this week. And I'll read the daily word. Today it is faith. I invest my faith only in possibilities for good. The parable of the talents in the Gospel of Matthew tells the story of a wealthy man entrusting sums of money to 3 of his servants before leaving on a journey. When the man returns, he praises and rewards the 2 servants who through wise investment have doubled the funds entrusted to them. A 3rd servant who, acting in fear, hid the money entrusted to him, receives no reward. The divine faculty of faith that is part of my spiritual inheritance is more valuable than money. I invest my faith wisely by believing and trusting that possibilities for good are present, even where good has not yet manifested, and I act on that belief. My positively directed faith brings rich rewards in consciousness. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master, Matthew 25:21, and make it a great day.
And so now is the time in our service when we pray for one another, when we hold one another's cares and concerns and joys in our hearts and in our prayer consciousness. So I invite you now, if you have a prayer need or a prayer desire, that you hold it within your mind, that there are no limitations of time and space, and that in the sense of oneness, in the reality of all of us being connected, that we are connected into one another's desires. And we can hold these desires, we can hold these intentions within our own consciousness as support and as love. If you have prayer needs yourself, just hold them in your mind. And let's just take a moment to mentally go through our own prayer list for ourselves and for others. And again, I go back to our statement of faith, that there is one presence and one power active in our lives, in the lives of our loved ones. The presence and power that we call God is active in every situation and circumstance. And the base of this presence and power is absolute good. And so we rely on that goodness, and in faith we open ourselves to the unfolding of goodness in every circumstance that comes to our attention and that wants our support. We know that our loved ones are saved, that our situations are unfolding according to our highest good. And so we practice patience as we hold our faith. And as we do so, we confidently relax in the outpicturing of good in every aspect of our being and every aspect of our lives, so that it is easy to give thanks, to let go, and to let God be God all the time. And so it is. Amen.
Find me here, speak to me. I want to feel you, I need to hear you. You are the light that's leading me to the place where I find peace again. You are the strength that keeps me walking. You are the hope that keeps me trusting. You are the light to my soul. You are my purpose. You're everything. And how can I stand here with you and not be moved by you? Could you tell me how could it be any better than this now? You calm the storm, you give me rest, you hold me in your arms, you won't let me fall. You steal my heart, you take my breath away. Would you take me in, take me deeper now? And how can I stand here with you and not be moved by you? Could you tell me how could it be any better than this? How can I stand here with you and not be moved by you? Could you tell me how could it be any better than this?
Well, our isolation has continued, and so we are continuing to take precautions to stay at home, at least I am, and to limit our activities to on behalf of ourselves and on behalf of the community as well. And I think that's the wonderful thing about this experience is that we're not only thinking of ourselves, it forces us into a situation of being mindful of others. And so while being at home, we perhaps some of us have been doing things that we haven't done in years. And although I do them periodically. One of the things that I have been enjoying during this period is doing jigsaw puzzles. I love doing jigsaw puzzles. I can get lost in them for hours. And that's one of the reasons why I don't do them so often, because I stay up way too late in the evening and I just get absorbed and lose all track of time. However, during this time of quarantine with the COVID-19 virus, I've really gone amok and thrown myself into jigsaw puzzling. So far, I have put together 4 puzzles. I tend to like the medium ones. There's one downstairs in this house that are 2,000 pieces, and I avoid it like the plague. I prefer 500 to 750 pieces, just enough to fit on the counter in my kitchen so that it can be up all the time. So the one I'm working on right now is a picture of a collection of baskets. And by far, it's been the hardest. The baskets are all very similar in texture and they're heaped up in a pile. After getting the border done, because you know that's the right way to go about putting together a jigsaw puzzle, I started to try to make sense of the middle. And what's making it more and more of a challenge for me is that all of the pieces are the same shape and size, almost. There's just enough variation to fool me sometimes. And what I think would go in a particular place ends up not going there at all. Well, I started grouping light colors and designs and putting them together as little islands floating in the middle of the frame of the border. And every once in a while, I will have an aha, and it would come along in which I discovered the piece that would put together an island with another island, and then it would become a bigger island. But in doing so, that small connection and in bringing the two together provided enough structure to allow me to fit many other pieces together. And I would be like on a roll for a while and it would be really satisfying. But up until that point, it was a struggle and it involved looking at every single piece over and over again. As I find more and more connectors, I have realized that they provide a change in both perspective and possibilities for me in terms of putting together the whole puzzle. Just one little piece in the right spot at the right time can usher in a whole new understanding of the whole. And then the rest of the pieces that seem isolated and independent have a place to go, and it makes sense. This phenomenon with a puzzle, I realize, is also true with my understanding of spirituality, that there are key ideas that, when found, understood, and applied, open up whole new vistas of realization. Metaphysics is full of individual ideas that have potential to shift our life experience. And it's had that for thousands of people over the last 100 years or so. The ideas within New Thought are fresh and exciting, especially to those of us who come from New Thought, from traditions of traditional Christian backgrounds. And most of us have come to unity from these backgrounds. And these other expressions of Christianity are organized around rigid structure and very clear-cut doctrine. Unity's positive and affirming philosophy has caused countless people to feel like they have come home the very first time they walk into a Unity church. I know many of you had, because you told me that. And I know that that was my experience, having come from a Catholic background. Such new, fresh ideas that I will be talking about this morning. These ideas changed my life, they changed my thinking, and they're changing my experience of my life every single day. The most challenging thing I find about discussing New Thought ideas of spirituality, though, is that of language. Language has a tremendous influence on our thinking. We think in language. We relay our thinking through language. And sometimes I don't even know what I'm thinking until I speak it. And what makes it confusing in terms of New Thought and traditional spirituality is that, or traditional Christianity, is that some of the same terms within unity are the same ones used in traditional Christianity. But in unity, the meaning of these terms is completely different. And I think in many ways it keeps us stuck between new worlds. We know in our intelligence or in our learning what these terms mean in unity language, but the terms themselves throw us back, I think, to our fundamental thinking. And one of the trickiest terms for me and many is the word God. Traditional language refers to God with pronouns such as he or she, him or her, and sometimes even it. But unity teaches that God is not a person. God is not an entity or a being of any kind. And yet, when we say the word God, there is an automatic association with something outside of ourselves. Something that's a central energy force or some type of consolidated intelligence. We may intellectually understand God as not a person, but maybe we might think of God as something like a control panel that's all wired up to direct the universe and our lives. Rather than being, God as being, used as a noun, unity speaks of being or beingness as it relates to God as a verb, and that this verb denotes energy and action. This energy is dynamic, and it flows as what unity calls divine ideas. And I've been speaking about divine ideas in regard to prayer and meditation, the silence, for a couple of weeks now. Another way of referring to divine ideas is as the 12 powers. These are the divine ideas: strength, power, love, wisdom, faith, life, zeal, imagination, understanding, will, and renunciation. Divine mind, God, beingness, does not possess these powers, but is these powers. In other words, God is not the power of love, is not a being that loves, but God is that which love is itself. God is not wise, but God is, under this definition, under this way of thinking, is the very thing that is wisdom. It's wisdom itself. God does not imagine. God is not a being that imagines, but is what imagination is. So when we love, when we are aware of wisdom within our own thinking, every time imagination is sparked within us, for instance, that is God expressing. It's expressing as our lives, as the activity, vitality, the movement, and the energy inherent in ourselves and our own beingness. Every time one of the 12 powers expresses in our decisions, in our actions, or interactions, that is God. That is beingness. Beingness and God expressing. Not something through us, but as our activity. And that is the basis of oneness. So here's a connector. God and I are one. That realization right there has thousands of applications that can change our lives in unlimited ways. We make decisions about how beingness expresses, and beingness expresses according to our level of consciousness. And what this means for us in our day-to-day lives is that we can decide how we will be within any given situation. Not the noun, but be as the verb. I had a personal experience of this a number of years ago. I was at the Center for Spiritual Living in Center of Spiritual Enrichment in Wilsonville, Oregon. I was Mary Madam Morrissey's church, and I was taking a program there in spiritual listening and companioning. And coming back on the weekend, on Saturday, after an all-day Saturday session, I was driving home, and that evening, so I was going from Portland or Wilsonville area straight to a class reunion on Capitol Hill in Seattle. It doesn't really matter which one it was, but they're traditionally 5 or 10 years apart. So it had been a while since I had seen my classmates. And I found myself, as I was driving, becoming very, very nervous and insecure and being filled with the what ifs and the imaginings of how I was going to show up. And so during the drive, I made a decision on how I was going to be as the verb, how I wanted to show up. And so I created some mantras or self-talk on my drive, such as, I am confident and secure. I am radiant. I am at peace. My peacefulness is palpable. And so I set a scene for myself. I created a visualization in which I would walk into the gathering of my classmates as a certain way. And I found that when I did arrive and walk in, that I was completely at ease, and I felt comfortable, and I felt at home with myself mostly. And so I had predetermined on how I was going to be in that situation. In our situation right now, in this quarantine and in these extraordinary circumstances that are outside of our normal activity, we have a choice as well. We have a choice of how we are to be in this situation. And the choice is completely up to us. We can express the divine ideas as the 12 powers, or we cannot, and we can make that choices. And the universe doesn't care, but our own consciousness development does. And even if it doesn't care, it's affected. God and I are one. And the decisions we make about beingness, how beingness expresses and beingness expresses in our lives and in every situation is an indicator of the level of our consciousness. And that is completely up to us. Unity's first premise concerning divine beingness is that of absolute good, that this beingness, that God, that this activity is absolute good, and it is good without opposition. This good is not a person. It's not a good person. It's not a good entity. It's not a good alien. It's not a good anything, but it is a principle. It's a principle of goodness. And that God or divine mind is good, is absolute good, can be difficult to understand from our dualistic perception. And I still have, I still go around with that in my mind. Well, how can God be absolute good when I look around at so many conditions around the world and not see that good? But the fundamental teaching is still that God is absolute good. Fundamental to unity, and which is different because when we then traditional traditional fundamental teachings, which teaches that there is good and evil, there is God and Satan, there are opposing forces in the universe, one of good and one of evil. So unity stands that God is completely good, is very much in opposition to that fundamental viewpoint. When unity teaches that God or divine mind or oneness is all good and everywhere present, it doesn't mean that everything we see or experience in the relative world is good. It simply means that absolute good, such as order or harmony or perfection, underlies everything as divine ideas and is ever available regardless of the situation. So here's the connector. Divine ideas as absolute good underlies all relative possibilities. Divine ideas make up the absolute realm and provide the basis of the relative realm. So divine ideas are the vehicles through which that which is invisible comes into visibility. That which is not experienced comes into expression and experience. Divine ideas underlie every person, thing, and situation. And even though we don't always, it doesn't always seem apparent in our relative world, and that is mostly due, always due, to humankind's consciousness. In our day-to-day lives, we can choose to be in alignment with divine ideas or out of alignment with divine ideas. And that's the freedom we have as human beings. That is the outpicturing of our free will. In unity terms, being out of alignment with divine ideas is called error. At any time, we can shift from error to alignment. And each shift towards alignment brings into expression more and more good. More and more of the good that is already present as our core reality and spirit. When human beings consistently function at low levels of consciousness, when others or ourselves function outside the alignment with divine ideas, we create habits of error thinking. And in that error thinking, the outpicture patterns from that thinking comprise what we know as cruelty, ignorance, hate, fear, prejudice, weakness, suffering, and the misuse of power. Within error thinking, oneness is not recognized, and therefore the lived experience of good is severely limited. An example of this is unforgiveness. That unforgiveness is error thinking out of alignment with the divine ideas of love, life, order, and the realization of oneness. By holding unforgiveness, the aperture through which good expresses in our lives becomes smaller and smaller, and that restriction prevents the manifestation of all that we are meant to be. So it confounds us in our divine purpose. What error thinking also does is that it creates the illusion of otherness or separateness. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is the energy of shift from error to alignment. Consciously entering into forgiveness opens that aperture that has been constricted and closed down. It opens it wider, allowing space through which good is both experienced and expressed in our lives. And as a result of that, we feel it in our bodies, we feel it in our psyche, we feel it in our hearts as relief, as harmony, as vitality, and as oneness. Very different experiences. And through that experience of forgiveness, we are opened and uplifted. And that is true when we correct the error thinking of any of the divine ideas. And so if we're finding our lives shut down or restricted in some way, going to the source, going to the divine ideas behind the experience that might be constricted is a good place to start, and then to correct that shutdown with an opening up. And that opening up is ushered in by realigning ourselves with the divine idea that has been restricted, whether that be love, whether that be order, whether that be imagination, or any of the 12 powers. When we are in alignment with them, that there is an opening in our own lives that creates unlimited possibilities. God, just to recap, by New Thought thinking, is not a being, but is beingness. It is energy and it is activity. So this beingness is also called divine mind. And divine mind emanates divine ideas. It doesn't create divine ideas, it emanates divine ideas. From the unity perspective, divine mind doesn't really exist, because metaphysically speaking, it doesn't come forth out of anything. Everything in the physical world, everything that we see and touch and smell, everything that we are in relationship with comes forth from an idea or an impulse or a thought pattern that is behind it. And that is the metaphysical part of our belief system. Metaphysics is the invisible reality behind every physical manifestation. When I am asked, what is metaphysics? That is my answer. I say, well, there's a physical world and a metaphysical world. The physical world is relative. That's the world that we move around in and are in relationship with on a physical basis. And then there's the metaphysical world. What is behind the physical world? What brings the physical metaphysics is what brings the physical world into visibility. So metaphysics is what stands behind all of our experience. there's no such reality behind divine mind. Divine mind doesn't come out of anything. According to unity thinking, it just is. And so just what is it? Well, divine mind encompasses the truth that that divine mind itself, is the source from which all intelligence and everything else is derived. That divine mind is substance. It's the realm of pure potential that lies behind all of the thoughts, all of the matter, and all of the form that we experience. Out of divine substance, we form whatever we choose, according to our desire, according to our faith, according to our understanding, and according to our degree of consciousness. And that's why in unity, the development of consciousness is so important. Mostly this development happens through prayer and meditation and going to the silence. Divine mind is also life, the source and sustainer of all energy, vitality, and activity. And life is the principle that expresses as wholeness and health. That is the principle that we go to when we are feeling less than whole for healing. We go to that principle of life and align ourselves with that principle of life. And in that alignment, according to how concretely and how strongly we can make that connection to life, we experience in the physical as healing. Divine mind is also love, and this love is the energy that harmonizes and unifies. Divine love is unconditional, and it is a constant outpouring of itself without reservation, wholly and completely throughout all and any circumstances and situation. That it never stops. It is never. It is not recognized, but it is never not available. Divine mind is also power. It's also that capacity, the capacity to accomplish good, to bring good into manifestation. Divine mind or oneness is the source of all power, all authority, all mastery, and all dominion. And divine mind as our beingness, how it expresses as ourselves, how it is one with who we are, is the experience of and the belief in our own spiritual authority. And we know when we are in our spiritual authority because we click with it. It feels right. It feels in sync with what sometimes we don't even have words to express in our souls, but it feels right, and it clicks in. Unity condenses all of these emanations of divine mind, of power, love, life, substance, into what you've probably heard of and what sometimes we speak of as the three Ohms: omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. So in coming into relationship with and gaining an understanding of these terms and concepts representing divine mind, we do that not so much out of a desire to learn about them, to have a knowledge of them, but rather as a means through which we can deepen our experience with them. So the power is not just knowing about them, but it's applying them and working with them and realizing them and letting them be the ground of our deepening through our experience with these principles. And as we do so, we become more and more aware that divine mind is the truth of us, that it is the absolute spiritual essence of who we are, and therefore this spiritual essence is always available to us in every facet of our lives at all times. All this is in all that is in the universal. All these divine ideas in the macrocosm is ours in the particular, and that's why we can say that that I am God, because of this oneness, of this absolute unity with what God is. Our finite minds have such a hard time grasping this infinite reality, and I realize that for myself as well, and I work on it daily. But when I do realize it, at whatever degree that I can, and apply it to the circumstances of my daily life, I find that transformation follows. And I know that this is true for you too, and is for anyone who works with these ideas and conscientiously apply these ideas to the circumstances of life, real life, not imaginary life or not ideal life, but real life, every single day. When we get cut off in traffic, when someone criticizes us, when we feel our buttons being pushed, all of these experiences of discomfort arise to guide us to the principle that we are not in alignment with, so that we can have an aha moment and let transformation follow. It's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle and finding that one single connector piece that makes the whole thing make sense. A lot of ideas in today's talk, and we certainly do have a challenge, and I have a challenge in talking about them within the concept of God as beingness, that doesn't trigger a response in my memory from a traditional sense of words like God, and I work on that. And so let's take these ideas now. Let's take this moment to enter into meditation and just to have a time of quiet and openness, so that whatever I may have referred to today, if there's something particular that struck you, that within this experience of meditation, we can just gently hold it within us, and ask this maybe not be question, but this curiosity. Ask that this curiosity know more. So let's just settle into that space within ourselves right now. Breathing in and breathing out. And allowing ourselves just not to think right now. Just not try to figure out, but simply to be in this field of silence, to be in this field of absolute love that is a constant supporter to our lives. To turn ourselves over to wholeness and health, to release ourselves to absolute good as the core ground of being within ourselves. And to give ourselves permission to start over in our realization again and again and again. Every time we get sidetracked, permission to come back to what is true. What is true of us, what is true of our being, what is true of God. Beingness, oneness. And so we allow ourselves to let go, to let the spirit within us care for us, direct us, inspire us. It is not ours to seek and struggle. It is ours to relax, receive, and realize. And we cannot relax and receive and realize unless we make space for that realization, unless we tap into that inner peace. until we allow our minds and bodies to relax. And this relaxing, this realization, this opening provides space. So let's each of us experience this space for ourselves. Experience non-thinking and non-doing. And let us release ourselves to the spirit within with faith and confidence and trust. Our lives are verbs, energy and activity becoming. Energy and activity realizing, making connections, making choices, choosing alignment with the truth of the divinity, which is our absolute friend of being. I am so grateful for the pings and realizations that go off in my realization, in my realizing mind right now. And I make the next step with these realizations by putting them into practice. One presence, one power. Absolute good. Everywhere present. Alive and well. Right here, right now. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful
for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
And thank you for joining us today. I would like to now move in. I'd like to move into our offertory, and we do have in our offertory affirmation. And this is the time of our service where we step in to the application of our beliefs, of our beliefs in absolute good, our beliefs in unlimited possibility, our beliefs in a prospering, evolving universe that is absolute good. There are many ways that you can, several ways that you can donate, that you can support this ministry, either through mail-in contributions of your tithes and love offerings, or online from our webpage at www.unityofkent.org, through the vehicles of PayPal or Giveaway, I believe. Anyway, Giveaway is the one I use most often. So together, let's just embody this statement of being, that divine love flowing as me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. And so now we'll close our service with our peace song. And then I will see you right after that for our closing benediction.
Do you need to unmute your phone?
Just it. And let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment with peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Well, I wish you a good day today, and I'm going to encourage you to go get a cup of coffee and a little munchie to have with your coffee, and have your own personal hospitality, and think of the rest of us and of our community. And so blessings on your day. Make it a good one, and hang in there. We're all doing okay. All right. Thanks again for tuning in. Bye.